that, I think we're ready to move on to NHL playoffs.
Let's move on to the NHL playoffs.
We actually have not talked about it yet. We tried to, but we just couldn't make it happen. This team...
That team right there.
This team came back from 3-1 to take out the 1 seed in Canada, your Toronto Maple Leafs.
Only the 9th team since 2010 to come back from a 3-1 deficit. And boy, have we heard about this before. Toronto blows another opening round
Wait, you said
series.
9th team since 2010?
9th team since 2010.
And 2 of those have happened against Toronto.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. Nice.
Yeah. It's not a good look for the Leafs.
We definitely have some content planned for this week. A video will be on the Leafs and what they need to do this offseason, so stay tuned.
Yeah. So we won't go too much into that, but there definitely something's got to change. It's as a hockey fan, I'm not a Leafs fan. I'm not a Habs fan.
Toronto needs to be better.
They need to be better.
We need to see them.
It's painful to watch.
I was talking to some Sens fans, and even they're like, man, they got to be better than this.
Yeah.
Habs fans obviously loved it.
Yeah, and I mean, you even said it before. I said it in the last show that if the Habs win Game 6, they're winning the series, and they did. You said it right at the beginning. You wouldn't be surprised if Montreal came out and beat Toronto.
Them. Yeah,
and they did. They outworked them, especially on the defensive end.
You said
guys
you'd be surprised.
I would be surprised. I said at the beginning that I'd be surprised, and then once I saw them win Game 5 and Galchenyuk throw that game away for the Leafs.
Yeah, you were off the wagon real quick once it was past 5, which I agreed with. That was a good take.
I just saw.
I hoped for everybody around me. Hoped for this the city of Toronto that they would win.
Yeah, but they didn't.
For the 550 frontline workers, that they would win in Game 7 at least.
The first time Leafs fans can get back in there, and that's what they had to watch. It's embarrassing. Yeah. It's embarrassing to watch.
Let's talk about Carey Price. That first goal goes in Game 7 for Montreal.
Yeah,
I told my dad, I'm like, that's all he needs. This game's probably over.
Yeah.
And then they score another, and that was it.
I saw them score the first one, and the Leafs came out. They came out better in that first period was just
that first period, nothing happened.
No, nothing happened. It was very much puck was in the neutral zone and just transferred back and forth there.
Yep.
Once the first goal went in, I'm like, oh no. But then once the second one went, I'm like, it went in. I knew it was over at that point because Carey Price might give up one to tie it up, but he's not going to give up multiple goals like that.
You look at their faces, man. The Leafs were not.
They gave up in the third. They were.
Yeah, once the third hit, you saw their face, their body language. They weren't in it, and you need more, a lot more from a team that talented, where 4 of your players, I believe, take up half your cap or something.
Yeah.
You need more. Nylander was there. Campbell was there.
But Mitch Marner hasn't scored in 18 straight playoff games. Matthews only scored once this series. They looked defeated, and they looked like this. It was almost like if you didn't know anything about the Leafs, you'd think, oh, this is just something that teams normally don't see. They've seen this before. They know what Game 7s are. Yeah. They've lost in Game 7s. Yeah. I can list you all the Game 7s that they've lost in their past 6 playoff appearances. Game 7s or Game 5s as like the play-in tournament last year. In win-or-go-home games for either team, they've played in 5 of them in their past 6 playoff appearances. Yeah. So they should know, and a lot of these guys were there for those.
Yep.
So they should know what it's like at this point, and it just seems like they don't. Yeah, and it looked like they didn't.
I'd be remiss if I didn't remind everybody that Tavares and Muzzin were both out.
Yep. They were both out.
I still don't think that's enough of an excuse. Tampa Bay won the cup without Steven Stamkos.
There is no excuse because, especially with Tavares, and here's why. They
won 3 straight games. They won 3 straight.
They were up 3-1 without Tavares. They know how to play without them, but they don't know how to play in potential progression, like moving on out of the opening series. They don't know how to play in those winning games.
3 chances, but...
They had 3 chances, and they blew it to a team that mathematically, if you take the top 16 teams in the league to make the playoffs, they're not there. Montreal's not there.
Oh yes, Montreal was
Montreal was
behind the Rangers.
Montreal was behind the Rangers. Like they finished, they were the lowest point total, like regular season point total in the playoffs
and they
this year.
were not a top 16 NHL wide team.
No, they were not.
But with that, let's just move on.
Yeah,
we'll talk more about it. I believe Wednesday.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Colorado Vegas. So far, you're disappointed. It's still 2-0.
Yeah.
So this series really will be decided tonight.
Yeah.
As we film Friday evening, afternoon.
Friday afternoon.
It's either going to be 3-0 or 2-1. It's a very big difference between the two.
Yeah.
Vegas very well can win this game. They can very well lose it.
Yep. Because Vegas just has to wipe away that game one.
Yeah.
Anytime you lose 7-1, it's just regroup, forget it happened. Like
here's the thing, they're already over it. They came back in game 2. They played a fantastic game,
and they lost in overtime.
Colorado so far is just the better team.
Yeah. And I mean, for the sake of my bracket, I hope Vegas plays better.
Either team deserves it.
Either team deserves it. I would not be surprised if Vegas came back and tied this series up in Vegas. And I'm still going to say that this series is going the distance.
I hope it does.
I hope it, because it's great hockey to watch.
If we have more games like game 2.
Yeah, that was great hockey.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I have to apologize for what I said last week about Ryan Reeves, and that Ryan Reeves is a guy that, makes dirty players regret their decisions. And then immediately after I said that, Ryan Reeves went out and did something extremely dumb, drove Ryan Graves' face into the ice. It was a very nasty looking takedown.
Yeah.
And he got suspended for 2 games for it. I saw that and really, I just came out here and said, I came out and vouched for this guy that a lot of people don't like Ryan Reeves.
Yeah.
I came out, and to this date, he hasn't been a dirty player. And I think that's also why he got 2 games.
He's had a couple questionable hits, but nothing like...
He's not the guy that you look at as a repeat offender.
Yes.
Like he doesn't come to mind.
Kadri.
Nothing like Kadri. Nothing like Tom Wilson. Like he's not that type of guy.
Yeah.
And then he came out and did that, and it's like, it was questionable. I don't really know why he did it. I think it was just came down to frustration.
I think
Graves had hit someone
Matthias
before.
Janmark,
Yeah, Graves hit him.
Who's now injured.
Yeah.
And he's been a heart and soul player for Vegas.
He was a big. He was the Game 7 catalyst on that team.
Yep.
He got a hat trick to move them past Minnesota.
So Vegas could be missing Janmark right now.
I think Vegas also, that game 1 was probably a little gassed after a very tight series in Minnesota. They came back stronger and rested in game 2, and it looked that way.
Yep.
So, I see this series going the distance.
All right, so let's move on to Carolina-Tampa, another series that looked in doubt with Tampa up 2-0, but Carolina was able to get that OT goal.
Yep.
Thanks to Sebastian Aho.
Yep.
I think this series is going to go the distance. I'll say up front, I didn't expect much out of Tampa Bay against Carolina because I thought Hedman was hurt or going to play like he's hurt, which he hasn't.
He has not. Nope.
So I can see Tampa Bay repeating. They have the depth, they have the talent. But Carolina is still a formidable opponent, although they're going through injury issues themselves with Trocheck and Fogle out.
Yep.
What do you think so far?
Like the last series we talked about with Colorado and Vegas, I think this one does go the distance too.
Yep.
I've been on the other side. I've been thoroughly impressed with Tampa Bay's power play. Like you said at the start, Nikita Kucherov has been the X factor.
Yeah.
He doesn't play all season. He comes out and he looks like the Nikita Kucherov we're used to seeing. Mm-hmm. I was impressed with Carolina's effort. They did stick around. It was a great game in Game 3. So I think this goes the distance. I think, again, when your best defensemen are Dougie Hamilton and Jacob Slavin, you're going to... defense is never going to be an issue, and it hasn't been to this point.
The only downside, again, are the injuries.
Yep.
And they have to figure out goaltending. Mrazek was in and got them that win. Can he do so consistently? And that's what Carolina has to bank on, because if they have to go back to Ned, it's going to be a little sketchy.
Yep. And I don't think at this point you can go back to Nedeljkovic.
No.
You really have to hope that Mrazek's there, because if you have to go back to Ned, it's probably series over.
Yeah.
No, and nothing against Nedeljkovic, but Tampa's just that good that they're going to feast off a new
It's
goalie.
the second round. You have to know which goalie you're going with.
Yeah, this is not flip-flopping in the first.
No.
They have to make sure Mrazek is consistent, offense has to be there, and the defense has to continue to be the juggernaut that it has to match up with Tampa's juggernaut of a defense.
Yeah, juggernaut of a team.
Yeah.
Boston and the Islanders.
Great series.
Flipping back and forth between wins on this. It's a 2-1 series for Boston.
Yep.
You have a top-heavy and surprisingly deep team.
Yeah.
Pairing well against a legitimate deep team.
Yep.
A good defensive team. I think, again, they'll continue to go back and forth. I have no idea who's going to win this series. I'm still leaning towards the Islanders, but Boston's been fantastic.
And watching Game 3 and seeing the overtime winner that Marchand took, it was not a good goal for Varlamov to let in.
Yeah.
But that's what it's going to take this series. It's going to take bounces. It's going to take putting pucks on net.
Yeah.
Because these teams are just so deep, defensive, offensive powerhouses. Like it's a good, evenly matched series.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to look for those small flukes, because these teams don't make a lot of mistakes.
No.
As there was, and they're going to have to capitalize off mistakes. In Game 3, it was Sean Corrali inside the last 3 minutes of the game, gets that cross-checking from behind, gets that 2-minute penalty. I thought the Islanders were going to win it there.
Yep.
They were just pressuring Rask with shots, and Rask, he took on the pressure.
He's been the best playoff goalie, in my opinion, for the past few seasons.
Yep.
Last year was a little different because there were personal issues, but outside of that, he's been phenomenal for Boston.
He's made 3 Cup finals.
Yep.
So I hope this is the year. I mean, if for Tuukka Rask's sake, I hope this is the year that he finally gets one of his own. He was Tim Thomas's backup when they last won, so and his career's winding down. Like, there's a lot of guys' careers that are winding down in Boston.
The one thing I will say about Boston is every year for the past few years has looked like their last.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised when their poise takes them to another deep run next year.
Everyone's just waiting for Boston's downfall, and it just never shows up.
No.
They're just like, finally, their age is going to catch up to them.
And they lost Torrey Krug.
They lost
Torrey Krug's in St. Louis right now.
Yeah. And they're still, they look okay.
Yep.
They look fine. Mike Riley's been great addition so far on the back end.
Sure. Somehow he wasn't doing it in Montreal. Goes to Boston. He's fantastic. Looking like Morgan Riley.
Yeah. Yeah. He's went farther than Morgan Riley. Watch out for Wednesday's episode.
Oh, man.
So I guess that means we move on.
Yeah, Mike Riley's old team, Montreal and Winnipeg. First off, Mark Scheifele, we're all very disappointed in you. Yep. I purchased a Mark Scheifele jersey, and I believe it came in on Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, early this week.
Yep.
A day later, he blows up Jake Evans.
Yeah.
A hit that didn't need to happen. No. I'll note up front, had he played the puck, he could have stopped that goal. Yep. But he played the body. He skated how far? A couple 100 feet?
190 feet.
He charged at him, and then he stopped so he wouldn't get that charging. Yep. Lit him up, headshot, suspension. It wasn't interference, but he came in with a lot of speed. Again, it wasn't a charge, but there was a lot of speed, a lot of force. He lined that hit up, and I don't know how long Jake Evans is going to be out. Hope he comes back soon. Mark Scheifele is now suspended for 4 games. He's not a repeat offender, but this is inexcusable, and it's going to stain his record.
He's definitely not close to that Tom Wilson, Nazem Kadri level of dirty. But this was arguably the dirtiest hit I've seen in a very long time, if ever. That's my opinion. He blew him up. If he had just played the puck, he probably could have stopped that goal, but he decided, he was frustrated, and he decided that I'm going to go in and I'm going to hit him very hard. I don't think anyone I don't think anyone...
You have to be dumb to think, because Mark Scheifele's a big guy. He's 6'3".
Yeah.
I don't know how tall Jake Evans is. I believe he's 6'1". Don't
like
quote me on it. So he's bigger. He's probably heavier.
Yeah.
He had to have known, unless he was completely mindless in that moment, he had to have known he was going to hurt Jake Evans.
And I'm gonna say it right now, and I'm kind of gonna go off on Scheifele for a bit here. That hit was classless. You do not hit a guy when he is on a wraparound attempt. Anyone who says that Jake Evans has any degree of fault in this is ridiculous. They're wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. This is not Jake Evans skating with his head down at center ice. This is him skating with his head down to guide the puck in the net for a wraparound to potentially close out this game, which he did. The hit happened after the whistle. Mark Scheifele had 190 feet to figure that this was a bad idea, and he didn't. He didn't stop. Didn't play the puck like any other person would have. He went in with the intent to blow this guy up. I can't say for certain that he went in for intent to injure. Only Mark Scheifele knows that.
Yeah. He definitely wanted a big hit.
And I'm going to say this right now. I saw clips from his press conference today. For him to come out and say that his suspension was excessive was, again, classless. Did not have to be said. You take your consequences and you accept them.
Yeah.
You don't comment on it. You can comment on the fact that I think it's equally as ridiculous that his family is receiving threats.
Yeah.
That his family is just hearing the worst. And even he said it. He's like, I'm a grown man. You take that up with me. Like, you don't come after your family, and you don't.
Yeah.
And that, I agreed with him in some of the things he was saying, but for him to come out and say that the suspension was excessive is ridiculous. It shows that he's not taking this seriously enough. Thank goodness he didn't put him in the hospital.
Yeah.
Because the team doctors reevaluated Evans. They said he was okay. Didn't have to go to the hospital. Apparently he's doing okay now. But for anyone to come out and say this was a clean hit, for anyone to come out and say that 4 games is excessive, it is wrong. They are wrong. This was a terrible hit. Again, worst hit I've seen in some time.
Yeah.
He deserves, like, Winnipeg at this point, he deserves to be the reason why Winnipeg loses at this point. And he will be. If Winnipeg loses.
I believe they're going to lose to Montreal. They got the heat they need.
Yep.
Scheifele's out. So that's an offensive threat gone.
Yep.
Montreal has the momentum. They're going to
Yep.
come out hard. They're going to hit some bodies. They're going to make Winnipeg miserable. If
Yep.
Scheifele is able to come back before this series ends,
Yep.
they're going to make Scheifele's life miserable.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a good play. And Montreal's got some big boys, so Winnipeg's got to watch out because this team is more talented than we all expected. They're more physical than they're given credit for.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for Winnipeg from here on out, and Montreal could be the 4th seed that wins the Canadian division, the team that shouldn't have made the playoffs because they're below 16.
Yep.
The final team to squeak
shouldn't
into
be
the playoffs. They very well could make the conference finals because of this. And Carey Price has been out of his mind.
He has played.
Their defense has been solid. Their young guys in Suzuki and Kotkaniemi have stepped up. Montreal's poised for a good run, especially with the dumb moves Winnipeg have been making.
And I want to give a quick, good guy shout out here for Winnipeg. Nikolai Ehlers.
Yep.
Blocking off that wall scrum so that Evans doesn't get fallen on and further injured. Just quick little shout out to Nikolai Ehlers, the good guy move, and when Mark Scheifele was the bad guy. So